All right, class, let's get started. I want you to think for a second about the money in your pocket, or maybe just the numbers you see in your bank account. We tend to think of it as this solid, real thing, just a simple tool for buying stuff. But today, we're going to peel back the layers on that idea. And I think you'll find that the real story of money is one of the most incredible and, frankly, surprising stories in all of human history.
So let's kick things off with what seems like a ridiculously simple question. What is money? I mean, really, it's not the paper, it's not the metal, it's not even the glowing numbers on a screen. The real answer is way more abstract, and it's something that we all together create every single day.
And this quote, this really nails it. This is the core thesis for our entire discussion today. Money isn't a thing so much as a shared story, a story we've all agreed to believe in. You know, it's a technology, a tool for human cooperation that lets us work together across huge distances and even across time. So today, we're going to trace that story right from chapter 1.
Our story begins, about 10,000 years ago. Way before coins, way before cash. We're in the age of barter. Now, this was our first crack at a system of trade, but as we're about to see, it had a massive, built-in problem.
This right here is the heart of the issue. Economists call it the double coincidence of needs, which is a fancy way of saying something very simple. Imagine you're a fisherman, right? You've had a great day, but your shoes are falling apart. To get new ones, you have to find a shoemaker who not only has shoes that fit you, but who also happens to want fish for dinner tonight. The chances of that lining up perfectly, they're not great. It's just incredibly inefficient.
So humanity, being clever, came up with its first brilliant workaround, commodity money. People started using items that pretty much everyone in their society agreed had some real intrinsic value. You know, things like cacao beans, beautiful cowrie shells, or even salt. Fun fact for you, Roman soldiers were actually paid in part with salt. The Latin for salt is sal, which is the root of our modern word salary. A little piece of history right there in your paycheck.
Okay, but carrying around bags of salt or beans is, well, it's a hassle. The world needed something better, something durable, easy to carry, and accepted by everyone. And that need led to one of the most important innovations in economic history, the first standardized coins.
And what's amazing is that we can pinpoint this revolution with incredible accuracy. We're talking around 600 BC, in a place called the Kingdom of Lydia, that's modern-day Turkey. The king, a guy named Aliates, started stamping these little pieces of a gold and silver mix called electrum. And with that one simple act, he completely changed the game of trade forever.
And this chart shows you the huge mental leap that happened. With commodity money on the left, you trust the object itself. You trust the salt because you can eat it. But with the Lydian coins on the right, you're not really trusting the metal, you're trusting the king's stamp. That seal was a guarantee of weight and purity. You didn't need to carry scales around anymore. This shift from trusting stuff to trusting authority is what put commerce into overdrive.
But even coins had their limits. I mean, they were heavy, and carrying a lot of them was risky. And that inconvenience, well, that led to the next great abstraction in our story, the idea of money as nothing more than a simple promise, written on a piece of paper.
What's really interesting is that the very first paper money wasn't a government invention. Nope, it was created by merchants in 11th century Song Dynasty China. They got tired of lugging around these massive strings of super heavy iron coins, so they started leaving their metal with someone they trusted and just traded the paper receipts, these deposit notes, instead. So much easier.
And you know what? A very similar thing happened over in medieval Europe. People would store their gold with goldsmiths to keep it safe, and they'd get a paper receipt in return. Pretty soon, everybody figured out it was way easier to just trade the paper receipts instead of the clunky gold. But then, the goldsmiths had a flash of genius. They realized, hey, most people never come to get their gold all at once. That meant they could actually issue more receipts, lend out more money than the gold they had sitting in the vault. And just like that, the entire foundation of modern fractional reserve banking was born.
Now, for centuries, even paper money was still just a claim on a real thing, like gold or silver. But that all came to a screeching halt in the 20th century, which leads us to one of the most dramatic plot twists in this entire story.
1971. Remember this year, because in 1971, in a single moment, the fundamental nature of money for pretty much everyone on Earth changed forever.
The United States was facing all sorts of economic pressures, so President Richard Nixon went on television and made a shocking announcement.
He declared that the U.S. was temporarily suspending the ability to swap U.S. dollars for gold. Well, that temporary suspension is still going on today. The very last link between our money and a physical commodity was cut.
Which brings us to a really crucial concept. Since 1971, every major currency, the dollar, the euro, you name it, is what's called fiat money. Fiat is Latin. It basically means let it be done, by decree. A government just says it has value. So its value isn't based on a pile of gold in a vault somewhere. It's based entirely on our shared faith and trust in the government that issues it. That's it. It's a collective belief.
So this great divorce from physical things brings us to our final chapter. This is where money completes its long journey of dematerializing, becoming nothing more than pure, weightless information zipping around the globe.
And just look at how fast things have moved. The 1950s, we get credit cards, which basically turn money into an entry in a bank's database. Then, in 2009, right after the financial crisis, Bitcoin appears, offering a new kind of trust, not in governments but in pure mathematics. And today, we just tap our phones and value moves instantly. Money is no longer a thing you hold, it's just information you send.
And that really brings us to the ultimate point of this whole lecture. This entire history, from shells and salt to stamped coins to paper promises to digital code, it has never, ever really been about the objects themselves. It has always been about the evolution of a single human idea: trust. We've just kept shifting where we place that trust, from a thing to a king to a bank, and now, maybe, to an algorithm. So, I'll leave you all with this thought to chew on. We are standing on the edge of yet another monetary revolution. But the fundamental question, it's the same as it always has been. The future isn't about what the technology will look like. It's about where we as a society are going to choose to place our collective belief next. In whom or what are we going to decide to trust?